Menyambut delegasi KTT ASEAN 2023. Selain KTT ASEAN yang diselenggarakan di Labuan Bajo pada Mei 2023, terdapat satu agenda penting lagi, yaitu KTT ASEAN ke-43 dan rangkaian ASEAN dengan mitra wicara yang akan berlangsung pada September 2023 di Jakarta. Konferensi ini juga akan diikuti negara-negara mitra di luar kawasan Asia Tenggara, seperti Jepang, Republik Rakyat Tiongkok, dan Korea Selatan. KTT ASEAN di Jakarta bisa berpotensi untuk memperlihatkan kemajuan ekonomi dan pembangunan Indonesia yang tetap tumbuh di tengah tantangan pandemi. Berkenaan dengan perubahan penetapan ibu kota negara, Jakarta sedang bersiap untuk mengambil peran sebagai pusat bisnis internasional. Selama pelaksanaan rangkaian KTT ASEAN ini, Jakarta berharap untuk dapat menunjukkan keunggulannya sebagai metropolis dan potensinya sebagai tujuan investasi. Dengan adanya pembenahan pada sektor-sektor transportasi, pariwisata, hingga ekonomi kreatif, Jakarta sedang mengangkat sumber daya lokalnya untuk diperhitungkan di pasar global. Melalui keketuaan Indonesia pada ASEAN 2023, Jakarta juga bermaksud untuk menciptakan dampak nyata melalui dukungan bagi masyarakat kurang mampu, perlindungan bagi pekerja migran, serta pemberdayaan penyandang disabilitas, baik di kawasan ASEAN maupun di kancah internasional.
Kepada seluruh masyarakat Jakarta, mari kita dukung dan sukseskan bersama keketuaan Indonesia di ASEAN pada tahun 2023 ini. Kita semua bisa ikut berkontribusi dengan cara yang sederhana. Tunjukkan keramahan khas masyarakat Indonesia yang sudah dikenal oleh dunia. Perlihatkan bahwa Jakarta adalah kota global yang masyarakatnya maju dan terbuka. Jaga kebersihan lingkungan di sekitar tempat tinggal dan beraktivitas, serta bersikaplah ramah dan tertib dalam bertransportasi publik. Perilaku kita akan menyampaikan kepada dunia bahwa Jakarta adalah kota yang peduli terhadap lingkungan yang berkelanjutan. ASEAN adalah kita. Mari berkontribusi kepada wilayah ini dengan cara masing-masing. Sukses Jakarta untuk Indonesia.
Coba ada ke awalnya tuh moderator itu lagi ngomong kan itu yang putih. Bagus. Apa ini yang putih yang lain. Apa ini bagus Pak? Iya. Ya dari sana ngomong. Itu berbicara. Makan atau semuanya. Dari sana.
Lebih suka
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greetings of virtue. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed participant, warm welcome to the Urban Talks webinar on this momentous occasions of exploring the post-relocations of Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. I'm Anissa Utami Kusumanegara from SDGs Jakarta Secretariat, and it is an honor for me to be your master of ceremony for today's event. Before we begin our discussion, I'm honored to introduce one of key figure who plays a pivotal role in shaping Jakarta's future. Please joining me in welcoming the chairman of Jakarta Regional Development Planning Agency, Ibu Atika Nurrahmania. Her insight will provide us with an overview of Jakarta's current status and its preparedness to evolve into a global city. Bu Atika Rahmania, the virtual stage is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greeting of virtue. Distinguished officials of ministers and institutions, distinguished officials of Jakarta government, distinguished head of representative and regional head of representative member, distinguished of stakeholders of Jakarta city's development, distinguished speakers of this webinar, Professor Jun Park from Seoul, Hazira Ghazali from Kuala Lumpur, Heidi Kim So from Rio de Janeiro, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the participants of this webinar. It gives me a great pleasure to be with you at the inaugural launches of this webinar Urban Talk series. On behalf of Regional Development Planning Agency, I'm welcoming a very warm greetings for you all. And on behalf of the Regional Development Planning Agency of Jakarta City, may I extend a very warm welcome to all participants in this webinar. I really hope this webinar activities like this can be sustainable, have a long-term impact on the readiness of the city of Jakarta and all of us in the future, and expand prospect for partnership and diverse research from all over institutions of the world. Consequently, the regional development of Jakarta have prepared to collaborate with worldwide institutions and organizations in order to foster the growth of research and innovation ecosystem that will ultimately contribute to Jakarta's vision as a global city. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Jakarta was, as is common knowledge, tasked with becoming a global city and economic hub capable of competing with other cities shortly after the relocations of Indonesian capital. Performing this task is not straightforward. However, it is not entirely unattainable. As a result, the management of cities requires an all-encompassing and inventive methodology alongside the development of public policies based on empirical data and scientific knowledge. In order to foster a sustainable global city and sustain economic growth that bolster the national economy, Jakarta was urged to make necessary improvement after the relocations of the capital. Hence, it is imperative that all relevant parties in Jakarta enhance their competencies and knowledge while also drawing insight from the experience of other global cities, particularly those that have undergone capital relocation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the relocations of national capitals has been attempted by numerous nations. Republic of Korea, Australia, Kazakhstan, Brazil, and Malaysia, for example, among others, have all experienced from which we must draw lessons. At this time, we are accompanied by experts who will impart their insights gained from the relocations of national capitals in other locations around the globe. With an interactive discussion format and present several expert speakers from South Korea, Malaysia, and Brazil who have experience in capital city relocations. Hopefully, we can utilize this opportunity to network, synergize, gain knowledge, and expand for our horizons, all of which will ultimately benefit for the city of Jakarta. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusions, I would like to extend my gratitude to the speakers for dedicating their time to participate in this event. The same holds true for the Center for Research and Innovations of Regional Development Planning Agency that coordinated this webinar. Hopefully, this webinar can run smoothly and we can continue to collaborate in the future to advance the research and innovations ecosystem. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Shanti Shanti Om, Namo Buddhaya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ibu Atika, for setting the stage for our discussions and also open our webinars. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, to kickstart today's webinar on a positive note, we would like to capture this virtual gathering right from the beginning. So if you're comfortable, please open your cameras. We will take a few screenshots to commemorate this moment after this opening remarks. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, as a friendly reminder, we kindly ask all participants to keep their microphone muted throughout the sessions. The moderator will read your questions from the Slido app, so feel free to submit your question from now through the provided link. And please take a moment to fill out the registration form through the provided link. Your registrations is important for us to streamline the distributions of e-certificates at the end of the sessions. Now, as we continue, I would like to introduce our distinguished moderator who will guide us through this engaging dialogue. I would like to welcome Bapak Andika Aji, currently serving as the CEO of the Center for Research and Innovation at the Regional Development Planning Agency in Jakarta Provincial Government, which has duties to develop urban research and innovation in Jakarta City. Andika Aji earned a master's degree in urban administration and planning from the University of Seoul in 2015. Throughout his career, Aji has actively participated in various educational and training programs that focusing mainly on planning and budgeting. With a wealth of experience in urban development and research, Pak Aji will lead today's discussions. Thank you for being here. Over to you, Bapak Andika Aji. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, our lovely MC, for your time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, blessing to all of us. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our today webinar. And this is a very first time of webinar series of Urban Talks. My name is Andika Aji. I'm very excited to be your host for this event today. First, I would like to start off by expressing my heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking time to join us today. And your participation is greatly appreciated. And we are so glad that you could be here with us today. And we understand that your time is valuable, and we are grateful that you have chosen to spend with us. And we promise it will make it worth while you're providing valuable insight and sharing informative knowledge throughout the course of this webinar. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. We hope you find this webinar both engaging and informative. Before we get started, I would like to go over for some important rules for today's webinar. One is please ensure that you have a stable internet connection and you are in a quiet environment to minimize the background noises. And the second one is please use the link in the chat column that provide you with the the background of this webinar and also the link for the Slido feature for Q&A, and also we will provide at the end of after this webinar, we will provide the e-certificate that you can search your name inside the link that we gave you in the chat column. Okay, and please keep all of your question and comments respectful and relevant to the topic at hand. And of course, please note that today's webinar will be recorded for the future reference. And the last one, for Jakarta City Government Official, please note that this webinar series will be accumulated in your training hours or GP. Thank you for BPSDM for make it possible. Okay, that's are just a few guidelines, and today's webinar topic revolves around the post-relocation of Indonesia's capitals, Jakarta toward a research and digital-based global city. Throughout this webinar, we will be exploring the impact of capital relocation on the ex-capital city in many countries and discussing various strategies and solutions that can help us, especially Jakarta city government, to overcome these challenges, especially the urban challenges. So the not make it long, and joining us today, we have some incredible speakers who are their expert in their respective fields. First, we have Professor Jun Park, who is a professor at International School of Urban Sciences, University of Seoul. Professor Park, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. And the next, we have Hazirah Ghazali. Hazirah is Senior Manager of Engagement and Partnership at C40 Cities. That she will share about the lesson learned from relocation of Malaysia's capital to from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya. And last but not least, we have the last speaker, Ms. Hanem Kim So, Senior Officer Secretariat of Municipal de Urbanismo e Licenciamenti. She will inform us, give our insight, lesson learned from the relocation of Brazil capitals from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia. Together, we are going to explore the impact of the relocation of capital city, and our speaker are going to provide us with valuable insight and strategy that we can apply to our own work and own projects. So let's get started. Before we begin, that's all, I think. So it's my pleasure to let our first speaker, Professor Park, to give his insight about the relocation, lesson learned from relocation of South Korea, Republic of Korea capitals from Seoul to Sejong City. So, Professor, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Morning, everyone. Okay,
Morning,
let me
Professor.
share my screen. Okay. Thank you for inviting me for this very important seminar. I have around 15 minutes, so I think this 15 minutes is enough to introduce what was the problem and what is still the problem of the Seoul metropolitan area, and what we did to address this issue of the overconcentration in Seoul. And I will conclude my presentation with some lessons from our experience. So I named the title of my presentation as Sejong, an incomplete mission of capital relocation. So yes, it's not completed yet. We need to do something more, right? And now you can see why I set this title as the incomplete mission. So the first part is the concentration at critical point. Yeah, growth is a good thing, of course, but if it goes beyond certain level, certain point, then we can suffer from the side effects from the overconcentration, and that is what the many emerging cities are experiencing now, and they are considering the relocation of the main functions of the big cities. And the second part, I will introduce our plan to build Sejong and other innovative cities and lessons. So as you know, the Seoul as a capital, it had the rapid urbanization process. So just after the Korean War, the population was around 1 million, but in just 40 years, the population got tenfolded, right? It got 10 million in 1988 already, and it peaked 11 million in 1992. It's got reduced a bit, but you need to have a closer look at this decrease, the seemingly decrease. But actually, if you think about the total commuting population to the Seoul, we call this as a Seoul metropolitan area in terms of the commuting area. This is beyond the boundary of the administration. So it seems that the population of Seoul settled down to a 10 million, but actually in terms of the commuting population to Seoul, the total population and commuting area of Seoul metropolitan area, it will be around more than 20 million. That is the problem. So for that, we need to understand the expansion, the process of the expansion of the Seoul. For many years, for almost 500 to 600 years, the Seoul's boundary was like this, you can see, right, in the world city. But it got expanded in 1914 to cover some other areas, including the Cheongnyang-ni, where the University of Seoul located in. And it got expanded in 1933 to the current administrative boundary. And at this time, also they had at the time we had an issue of the overconcentration. So we developed sub-centers like Gangnam and Yeongdeungpo. You know, the Gangnam is now overgrown the sub-centers, and it got quite dominant position in terms of the employment and the economic activities. Now we have 25 districts, but this is not all in terms of the Seoul's expansion. We have the green belt, right? And we built 5 new towns, new cities, just beyond the green belt in late 1980s. And the location of these cities were around 25 kilometers from the center of Seoul. And we linked these 5 new towns with the metro, the subways. And what we did in 1990s, we had the same issue, the influx of the population, increase of the urban population. We don't have enough houses. And the solution, one of the solutions were to build the houses outside of city because we don't have enough land inside city. So we built another set of the new towns. These are called second generation of new towns in 1990s. But the problem is the location of these cities. These cities are located around 30 to 40 kilometers away from the center of Seoul. And also, these were all connected with the metropolitan transportation networks. The result is, you can guess, the increased commuting time and the more congestion in inner cities, and the increase of the houses in the inner city as well, because the locational advantage in the central areas increased because of this physical expansion of city, right? So you can find me one of them, right, in the picture. So most of the citizens, not only the Seoul citizens, but also the citizens who live in the cities in Gyeonggi province and Incheon area, Incheon city, we have to commute to the central Seoul, because most of the jobs, decent jobs, are still located in the central Seoul. We just built the houses, right? And we also tried to provide some employment in the new towns, but that was not enough and not quite effective. So we are suffering from this overcrowdedness in Korea. So there is a quite interesting documentary in 2015. The title was "Still on My Way to Work for 2 Hours." It means we have some people, some citizens who have to commute more than 2 hours in one way. This is, quite problematic. So in the interviews, during the interview in this the documentary, some say, why do we commute such a long way? When can you afford to live nearby our place? This is all because of the poor planning, right? So in terms, I'll show you some statistics in terms of the commuting. We had a significant increase of the long commuting, right? Especially in Gyeonggi province. It means this is to do with the expansion of the Seoul like this, right? So many people, they live in the Gyeonggi province, but they still need to commute to Seoul. That's why that is the background of the increase of the long commute. And if you look at the statistics across the countries in OECD, and this commuting includes the commuting in rural areas as well, where the commuting time is very, very short, right? And amongst these OECD countries, Korea's average commuting time is the highest. So from these problems, we decided to do something, right? Quite at the time, quite audacious plan. I'm sorry. Let me show you one more slide for that. The problem. If you look at the Seoul and the Gyeonggi province and Incheon city, this area is called the Seoul Metropolitan Region, and these areas just to take less than 12% of the total area of Korea, but in terms of population is almost 50%, and most of the economic activities are concentrated in these areas. And if you look at this one, the right bottom, the ranking of the quality of life is the 89th among the 200 cities worldwide. Seoul's one. So why? As I explained before, the long commute, congestion, and high house prices. These are all to do with over concentration into Seoul. So we have to think about the new approach, that is the relocation of capital. Relocation of capital was one of the plan, and also the other plan was accompanied with this plan. The other plan is to also relocate other public institutes in the other areas. So the first plan, the capital relocation plan, was actually modified into the Sejong Multifunctional Administrative City. I'll let you know the background of this change later. The target population of this city, planned population of this Sejong city was 500,000, not quite enough, I think. And we relocated 44 central authorities, including Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, and the other ministries. And also we relocated 19 national institutes. For instance, Korea Human Research Institute for Human Settlement. Some of you may know, right? And we relocated KDI, Korea Development Institute, for instance. And what we did along with this is to develop 10 innovative cities for the balanced regional development. So we relocated the around 100 quite the big size public corporations, which were previously located in the Seoul, where we relocated these companies into these various regions, 10 regions. Why we did this? The government, even the strong government, cannot force the private sector to relocate its headquarters to the other regions, right? Or we need a huge, for that, we need to provide a huge incentive. So that is not quite feasible option. So the government use their own, make their own decision to relocate itself to the other areas, or if it can relocate the public institutes at least to the other areas, and so that this development of the new cities or the new functions can induce or attract more private sectors. And if you look at more about this Sejong city, the location of Sejong city is around 120 kilometers from Seoul, and also it's quite close to the other main cities in South Korea. And this slide shows the relocation of the public institutes, public corporations into this 10 innovative cities. This includes Busan and Ulsan, Daegu, some big cities, some existing big cities. And the next slide shows some of the result of this, the creation of the innovative cities. Innovative cities means the new city which has this the relocated public corporations. For instance, this is the case of Jinju in Gyeongnam province. 11 public organizations, public institutes were relocated, which include the Korea Land and Housing Corporation, the biggest one. Yeah, and this one has around 5,000 employment, and this relocation of 5,000 the employment induced more jobs here. And if you look at the next slide, you can see the positive impact from this relocation. But there is I want to, from this experience of the relocation of the capital, the approach to attempt to relocate our capital, and also the public, the functions into the other areas, we had some lessons. The first one is about the opposition from the so-called establishment who have the property ownership in Seoul. There was quite strong opposition, because when you relocate the capital function to the other area, then the values in the existing cities may have the negative the impact, right? So this group appealed to the Constitutional Court at the time, and the Constitutional Court decided over the relocation plan to be unconstitutional at the time. Why? Because the Seoul was the capital for more than 600 years or something. So not quite strong basis, but anyhow, that was the decision by the Constitutional Court. So it prohibited the relocation of the presidential office and the National Assembly. That's why we still have a presidential office and National Assembly in Seoul. So the initial plan of capital relocation modified to relocate only administrative functions. So that's why we named Sejong as a multifunctional administrative city rather than a new capital of South Korea. So also we halved the planned population. So it was initially planned initial plan was to build a city for 1 million population. The other lesson is, just a moment. Another lesson is the impact of the capital relocation or the distribution of this the public institutes in multiple areas. What was the initial what is the cause? What is the most important fundamental background of this relocation plan? It was to address the over-concentration of Seoul into Seoul. Then we need to think about not only the distributing some functions in Seoul, but also we need to think about to set an alternative anchor. So that is quite important. So we have a question that Sejong is functioning as an alternative anchor to Seoul, or is it too weak as an alternative? So making an alternative to address this over-concentration to the existing capital is, I think, very important. So I'm thinking, what if the 150 public institutes, including the big ones, and along with the ministries, of course, including Korea Electric Power Corporation, Korea Land Housing Corporation, and National Health Insurance Service, and so on, at the same, in a couple of strategic cities, including Sejong, not distributed to 10 cities. What was the impact? What would be the impact of this strategic relocation, rather than just disperse this public institutes, this public jobs into many areas? So in terms of the setting an alternative anchor, I think this distribution of the public institutes to 10 cities is not a quite good decision, I think. But not quite finished yet. It's incomplete now, but the Sejong will have the further growth, I think. Quite recently, the Sejong branch of National Assembly will open. This decision was made, and the secondary presidential office in Sejong will open in 2027. And personally, I hope these two functions will permanently relocate to the Sejong, so that the Sejong can induce more jobs from the public and private sectors as well, and it can set itself as an alternative anchor to Seoul. And also we have a plan to relocate remaining 360 mid-sized public institutes. And also I hope this one will be, we can be more strategic in terms of the setting, the locations of this relocated, would be relocated, the public institute in the future. This was the experience and lessons from South Korea. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Park. I'm glad to see you again right now. I remember that we met in Seoul in September, right?
Yeah.
September something.
Yeah.
So thank you for your insightful presentation. And now
Thank you.
it's time to for many participants in here, keep your question and then just use the link of Slido, and then we now continue to our next speakers, which is the senior manager of what else? Wait, I have to look at the senior manager of C40 cities. So please welcome our next speaker is Ms. Hazira Ghazali. The floor is yours, and nice to meet you.
Nice
It's
to
the first time we meet each other, right?
Yes, Pak Andika.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Andika, for the introduction. So before I start, I would like to extend my greatest appreciation to the Regional Development Planning Agency for Jakarta City for having me here to share the experience of Kuala Lumpur, the current capital city of Malaysia, but having to relocate the function of the capital government or administrative function to Putrajaya back in 1999. So I'm very honored to be able to share this with Jakarta, who is also a member city of C40 cities. So I believe some of you would be wondering, how did a C40 cities officer, a senior manager of the engagement, speaking on behalf of Kuala Lumpur? Well, I had been working with Kuala Lumpur City Hall for the past 10 years and just recently moved to C40. So I was actually offered back in May when I was still working at the City Hall, and unfortunately left the city government in August and joined C40. I was the special officer to the mayor, the 11th and 13th mayor of Kuala Lumpur, and also the head of international trainings for Kuala Lumpur Regional Trainings Center for the past years. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, I will try to phrase my presentation based on these three outlines. First, the historical process of the relocation. Secondly, the opportunities and challenges faced by Kuala Lumpur after the relocation. And last but not least, the status of Kuala Lumpur as the research and digital-based global city. So Kuala Lumpur is one of those cities that was the capital, and then some of its function was moved to Putrajaya. So in the year of 1880, Kuala Lumpur was first announced as the capital city of the state of Selangor government, with a size of 670 square kilometers. However, in 1974, they decided that the Sultan of Selangor gifted this capital city of Selangor to the federal government, and hence became the capital city of the country instead of just a Selangor state government capital city. So this area wasn't the 670 kilometers, it was only 234 square kilometers from the state of Selangor. So with the increasing population advancement of technology back in the 1980s, Kuala Lumpur was the driving force and the driving friend of not just booming the national economy at that time, but also it was deemed as one of the Asian tigers. So with the increase in population in Kuala Lumpur, which means increase in the demand of economic purposes, increase in the movements, increase in urban issues like traffic congestion, housing, and also health issues. These are all were at risk. This could be one of the main reasons for relocation, but not very much the main issue. In order to show that Malaysia is capable of smoothing and improving the government services, tackling urban issues, and at the same time strategically luring more investments into Malaysia, particularly Kuala Lumpur. So there were mega projects that were planned by the government, and these mega projects include the development of Putrajaya, the Petronas Twin Towers, and also the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. So, right, as you can see on the screen, this is the whole of Selangor state government, the one with so many colors. So, but the one in whites are both Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya. So it's very close to one another. And those are actually belong to the Selangor state government, but were consented by the Sultan to the federal government as federal territories. So based on this, you can see on the actually behind the story of how Putrajaya was actually come into place was there was another option to actually have the relocated area of the administrative government to be at the northeastern side of Kuala Lumpur, which is above Gombak area here. However, because of the hilly and there's like you need to do a lot of earthwork
like the sloping and so on. Hence, the government decided to develop Putrajaya at Prang Besar, which is the old name of Putrajaya, just below the southern east side of Kuala Lumpur. So Putrajaya was built in 1995 with a cost of 8.1 billion US dollars, and I think it is equivalent to maybe like 13 or 14 trillion of Indonesian rupiahs. The construction of Putrajaya was initiated by the then Prime Minister. So the location of Putrajaya was chosen mainly because it has good soil contours to support development at a relatively low cost compared to how Janda Bait was. Socioeconomically impacts are also there is no much because there's not many people at that time in Prang Besar. The population wasn't that many. So since Prang Besar was only a small oil palm plantation, it is a strategic location within the growth corridor between Kuala Lumpur and Selangor, other prominent cities in Selangor, with an easy accessibility to major transportation network such as rail, highways, and also the then still being constructed, the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, which is just 15 minutes away from Putrajaya. So, and also the existing of interesting natural vegetation and landforms to be incorporated into the city planning and development of Putrajaya. So these are the things that will be able to maximize the potential impact for catalyzing development to the surrounding regions, not just Putrajaya and Kuala Lumpur. So the relocation of Putrajaya, the construction of Putrajaya, is considered important because of the lack of development within Kuala Lumpur. There's no land development to be developed anymore. So it's very hard to find a place where you can strategically put an area for a centralized government office avenue within Kuala Lumpur. It's only 234 square kilometers. So, and in Kuala Lumpur, before that, all these government offices mostly were renting out from commercial buildings. So they believe, and the Prime Minister believed at that time, the policy to move the government centers from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya, which was started in 1993 and began its construction in 1996, was the good idea. However, the whole ministries wasn't relocated there, and only in 2012 most of the Malaysian government's offices have occupied Putrajaya. So the relocation of the central government was carried out due to various sectors, one of which the traffic congestion was Kuala Lumpur, which was unavoidable considering Kuala Lumpur as a center of growth within Malaysia. Then to reduce the pressure in Kuala Lumpur, for example, the affordable housing, waste management, and in line in the increasing of space requirement, the federal government took into this consideration to have this moved from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya. So Malaysia actually transforms Putrajaya in such a way as to be the center of government, the administrative capital, just like how Sejong City is also functioning at the moment. However, we do have our Prime Minister's office in the heart of, you can see on the screen, the Prime Minister's office is over there, as the heart of Putrajaya, because this effort was made by the Prime Minister himself, and there was no opposition from anyone on during when he stated about his belief to open up or to start structuring Putrajaya. So alternatives to transfer government centers, not only they can create optimal service and government performance, but also the policy can be a strategy and the beginning of the emergence of new cities in the destinations. So you have Cyberjaya, you have Dengkil, you have so many others neighborhood coming up on your way to Putrajaya. Urban problems such as the size of the city that is not balanced with population growth is actually being covered as well. The inability of the government to regulate the population and the development of the city that causes congestion, pollution, crime, and the many migrations that happen from the city to the suburbs So these are actually, those are the things that trigger to make alternative new city development. So one that triggered the development of new cities is also to make the new growth centers. So on which we believe that Putrajaya, Sarajaya, and also few other cities that come out from the development of Putrajaya were supposedly helpful to ease the problem within Kuala Lumpur. So basically, with the potential that this relocation has made to expand population growth within the corridor and also to other parts outside of Kuala Lumpur itself is experiencing the increased demand of economic opportunities, despite having governmental ministries move to Putrajaya. This move have become the main reason for more foreign investments coming into Kuala Lumpur as it is deemed as very strategic, and the MNCs setting up their headquarters within Greater Kuala Lumpur boundaries. So as you can see in this slide of the graph on your left, on the blue, so you can see that Kuala Lumpur's population among other cities within the Greater Kuala Lumpur remains the highest of all, and this trend continues over the years. So Kuala Lumpur specifically have been beneficiaries of the shift, despite increasing global economic uncertainty and few percentage drops in global foreign direct investment at that time in 2016. Malaysia remained resilient and saw a 63.4% increase in approved FDIs to USD 13.2 billion in 2016. So foreign investors are particularly interested in using Kuala Lumpur as the regional operational hub to tap into the growing opportunities in emerging Asia. So based on the study in 2018, foreign investors are attracted to Kuala Lumpur due to its connectedness and strategic location. So Kuala Lumpur was also offered a business-friendly environment and a very much competitive location to operate as a regional base. So with its well-developed infrastructure, capable of human capacity, attractive incentives from the government that encourage investments, a highly diversified economy, and a multilingual workforce that can speak English, Malay, Chinese, Mandarin, Tamil. So Kuala Lumpur remains the largest contributor to the GDP per capita of Malaysia. So as you can see in the screen, these are the opportunities and benefits gained by Kuala Lumpur City for the past 20 years, after serving as a center of economic growth and the main hub for financial services mainly. So there are 62 MNCs based in Kuala Lumpur, with 4,367 skilled and professional employment were offered, 119 financial institutions in Kuala Lumpur, and Kuala Lumpur was ranked first in the most developed Islamic finance market in 2022, leading in insurance, takaful sukuk, and Islamic financing. So despite the move of government function to Putrajaya, 104 embassies and high commissioners remain their offices and residences in Kuala Lumpur. So Kuala Lumpur is now ranked 12th globally in ease of doing business, and hence the opportunity to create more job opportunities in the city remains positive. So ladies and gentlemen, every rose has its thorn, every rainbow has its rain. And yes, we can say that by relocating the governmental function to a new city, which is Putrajaya, it helps to create new township in a better planned environment, which leads to a better and improved quality of life, also helps to strategize Kuala Lumpur into becoming a financial services and business sectors hub for the country and the region, with more job opportunities to be offered. But this comes with some setbacks. Now, small and medium enterprises' contribution to the GDP remained low at 37.1%, despite being the largest source of employment. Now, the majority of SMEs are still relying on low technology and engaging in low value-added activities. In regards to this, initiatives should be taken to create dynamic SMEs, which are globally competitive and able to produce high value-added goods and services. So indeed, Kuala Lumpur needed to upgrade capacity and capability of SMEs, encouraging digitalization among SMEs, as well as accelerating the application of technology across sectors. Next is by providing quality infrastructure. So no, we are not saying that Kuala Lumpur does not have good infrastructure, but needs to be well maintained and improved from time to time. The provision of quality infrastructure remains an issue in terms of integration, coverage, connectivity, as well as affordability and sustainability. In this regard, great emphasis should be given to transport integration in enabling seamless movement of peoples and goods. Logistics and trade facilitation initiative needs to focus on improving efficiency and effectiveness of services along the value chain to enhance competitiveness. So meanwhile, digital infrastructure needed the support to be improved to increase broadband coverage and capacity to cater the demand of the digital economy at the moment. In addition, the efforts to enhance the efficiency and reliability of water services and waste management and energy supply needs to be undertaken. So this also includes the focus to provide adequate, affordable housing to cater to the 40% of the community with lower income. So to ensure that the city remains competitive and resilient towards the changes in lifestyle, technological advancement, and climate impacts, we believe that data-driven solutions is one of the apparatuses that could help in urban management of the city. So the Kuala Lumpur Command and Control Center, which functions very more or less the same as the Seoul office, is a real life data city movement data heaven. So with more than 3,000 high-resolution cameras equipped with AI-driven technology, KLCCC, shortened of the Kuala Lumpur Command and Control Center, is a data hub for which are being used not just by Kuala Lumpur City Hall to monitor traffic conditions, but also the police agency to resolve crime issues, for Works Department to upgrade public infrastructure such as, recognizing potholes, slopes, flash flooding, monsoon drains, and to monitor like large crowds and to manage the safety of the people. So the information that this data hub stores is shared across government agencies and it helps to provide quicker, more accurate solutions to urban issues. So Kuala Lumpur also remains the hub for many research institutions, for instance, from the financial sector, the Khazanah Research Institute, the ASEAN Research Center, and Malaysian Institute of Economic Research. And then from the medical sector, we have the Clinical Research Center, Institute for Medical Research are located in the heart of Kuala Lumpur. And in the social sciences, the Malaysian Social Research Institute and Social Wellbeing Research Center. And for the agriculture part, the Palm Oil Research Institute of Malaysia and the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia. These are some research institutions that remain and were set up in Kuala Lumpur, where the Kuala Lumpur Regional Training Center owned by the city government of Kuala Lumpur are very much highly connected with. So for the conclusion, it has been only 24 years since the relocation of government function to Putrajaya from Kuala Lumpur. So the urban growth within Kuala Lumpur will continue to increase despite the threatening development from other major cities in Malaysia, such as Penang, Johor Bahru, Ipoh. So Kuala Lumpur City Hall will have to be at the forefront of engaging with city dwellers to ensure that the city remains vibrant and livable to attract not just tourists, but foreign investments to the city. So it is not an easy job for Kuala Lumpur City Hall, not an easy job for Seoul Metropolitan Government and Rio de Janeiro to maintain status of what it is now, but it is not impossible for us to ensure a livability and productiveness of the city government, given the best to the city people, especially by providing better environment to live and create more job opportunities to the people. And all in all, it is important to always take into account in sustainability the sustainability and resilience of the city to provide to the most vulnerable, especially taking into consideration the loss and damage of the climate impact and how we can adapt to lessen the impact from climate change. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your insightful presentation, Ms. Hazira. Actually, I was living in Kuala Lumpur before in back to 2006 to 2007. It's a really nice city actually over there. That's before I finally became the public officer of Jakarta city government. So it's like vice versa for both of you, both you and me. You previously in Kuala Lumpur city government and then go outside, but I'm from outside the city government and then I was going to be a city government officer. So thank you very much for your insightful presentation. And for the next speakers is from Brazil. She's Miss Hanem Kim So. Miss Hanem, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, actually, we can see your screen about the relocation of Brazil, but I think wait. Okay, that's good. Clear.
Okay.
Okay, you can continue, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity for having me. I'm really happy to be part of this webinar, and I would like to thank the Jakarta government, Ms. Atika and Mr. Adhika for having me in this event, especially Ms. Krisni for inviting me and making this event possible. I would like to congratulate Professor Jim Park and Ms. Hatsira. I feel really honored to have the opportunity to share this virtual table side by side with you, renowned scholars and renowned public officers. I'm from São Paulo, urban planning public company named São Paulo Urbanismo. And I will share about the relocation of Brazil capital from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia. So I expect to share similarly with my previous colleagues, Professor and Hasira, about how was the historical timeline, if it was planned or unplanned, the relocation contest of Rio de Janeiro, and some challenges of that Rio de Janeiro faced and is still facing. So some of you, I don't know if you know, but Brazil had already 3 different capitals. So Salvador, which was the capital of Brazil while it was colony of Portugal from 1549 to 1763. And then Rio de Janeiro from 1763 to 1960. So it's almost 200 years of capital. And then lastly, from 1960, Brasilia. In similarly with Seoul and as Kuala Lumpur, the issues that made the change are pretty similar also. It's all about security matters, especially in Brazil, for example. So if you see the map, first capital was Salvador, which is closer to Portugal. So you can see we had, as a colony, we made sugar cane to fill Europe, especially Portugal. That's why Salvador was the first capital of the Portugal Empire. And then what happened is that in the central area of Brazil, Minas Gerais, we started to find some precious stones like gold. So then the economic center moved to southeast. This is one of the reasons why Rio de Janeiro got became the economic center. And then in 1763, it changed it to Rio de Janeiro, the capital. And in 1763, either Salvador and Rio de Janeiro had the similar population number, which was 40,000 inhabitants. And then what happened is that Visibly, Salvador and Rio de Janeiro, they are near the sea. And as you can see, Brazil is really a continental country. I feel that we have the same challenge as Indonesia, for example, that is not as big as us, but you are like dissolved in islands and you have more extense territory. So Brazil have the same issue. So one of the reasons is about security matters, to push a capital to become more secure in the central part of Brazil. And by the time Rio de Janeiro in 1960 had 3 million inhabitants, similar to what we had, for example, in the charts Professor June Park showed in the similar 1960s, Seoul had around 3 to 4 million inhabitants. So this led us to think, is it planned or unplanned, this change? So if you see this chart, we can have the sensation that the changing of the capital was planned. As I said, 1763, Rio de Janeiro became the capital, but already in 1789, we were still a colony from Portugal. Tiradentes, it's in translating the tooth puller as like a dentist. He was one of the first martyrs that fought to Brazil independence over Portugal. And he was the very first person to speak out about the necessity of relocation of the capital to the central part. He was executed in 1792 in this date, 21st April. And it's important to say that Rio de Janeiro is a unique capital because in 1808, Rio de Janeiro became the capital of Portuguese colony. It became the capital of the entire Portuguese Empire. It meant being the capital of Angola, Mozambique in Africa, for example. Rio de Janeiro was the capital of Goa, India, Timor in Southeast Asia, and Macau in China, because all those was capital colonies from Portugal. So it made a unique capital outside the original Portugal territory. And we became, as a colony, the first capital to seat the whole empire. And then it started and it fortified the independence movement since the empire was here in Brazil. Until 1822, we had the Brazil Independence Day. And José Bonifácio, which was one of the main ministers of the new beginning Brazilian Republic, already said the movement and the necessity and advocate of moving the capital to a central plateau of Brazil. And it's interesting to see that in the second and third and fifth constitution of Brazil, the movement from the capital to central part in Brazil is already written in specific articles. So it means that this idea that we need security to move Rio, the capital, to a central part in Brazil was already an ongoing issue during the whole history. And then it comes in the 19th century. You have in 1956, finally, we have a new president called Juscelino Kubitschek. We call him with the acronym JK. And JK was a military medical doctor, which was elected president. And his slogan was make 50 years of progress in 5 years. So he had 4 years of intense political action. And one of the decisions after in his 5th day in charge, he already set the goal to change the capital. And the arguments are pretty much the same, the official arguments. It's about national security, and it's about the strategic movement to occupy Brazil's central area, because as continental as we are, the central part was empty. So that was a strategy. And all these fast change and really intense change, gave this new slogan that we nicely gave to this era. We've from 50-year progress in 5 years, we have a chart saying 50 years of inflation in 5 years, because to build Brasilia, we needed a lot of printing money, etc., etc. But the real important thing that I want to share, and it's really quite controversial, it's about the historic critics and specialists defend another point of argument. So Rio de Janeiro being for 200 years almost being the capital, made the elite, the cultural elite or the political elite, the innovation and new ideas elite hosted in Rio de Janeiro. So it made quite challenging for a national development kind of president to implement forcefully their strategy. So a lot of experts actually defend that the movement of Juscelino Kubitschek to the central part was managing to keep a distance of this cultural elite, the brains of that country on that time, to have a more forceful and empowered president or mandate. So it makes sense because right after the inauguration of Brasilia, which was in 1960, after 4 years, we have the military coup that extended until 1985. So some experts give that this change and this distancing of the political elite of that time made possible and made ground to make a forceful and more dictator kind of way of military new government. So it brings me to the first question. Is it planned or is it unplanned? So in summary, we have national security against maritime attacks as an argument, a settlement strategy to occupy the central region of the country, and this distancing movement from the political and the cultural center. Of course, all the urban issues that Seoul or Kuala Lumpur faced are pretty similar here. But in 1950, Rio de Janeiro was having this Belle Époque kind of period when all the European democratic egalitarian idea was coming from Europe and settling up in Rio de Janeiro. So that probably was a resistance, let's say, movement, a possible resistance movement, so facing a dictator or a forceful empowerment of military actions. So this, let's say now then the relocation contest. As I said, Rio de Janeiro was having this splendid, like the 40s and the 50s were all place full of ideas, innovation, etc. And Professor Angela Castro Gomes says that nation building is a permanent and unfinished process during which its members, or rather populations, learn to recognize themselves with their own characteristics that not only distinguish them from other nations, but also identify themselves. So we can use this quote to Rio de Janeiro capital. That was the role of Rio de Janeiro. And that Rio de Janeiro has the sense for 200 years to being the capital that moved the colony to a nation. This elegance and this patriotism, they have this national responsibility that lead and maintain the colony, sustain the economy as a new country, etc., etc. And the important thing is that this role is still now, some of experts, is still now there are so many public federal properties there, and as well as some headquarters and central office of national companies and government agencies are still there, such as Petrobras, which a lot of you may know, a joint stock company controlled by the federal government that extracts oil. and the National Art Foundation, Osvaldo Cruz Foundation, the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics that do the whole census of nationwide is still have the headquarters in Rio de Janeiro. And also the number of federal public officers in Rio de Janeiro is almost in the same number of Brasilia. So it makes like the state of Rio de Janeiro is a federative minotaur. It has the head, the national capital, and a body of a state. So it still have a lot of influence, and still all the federal government decisions on Brasilia has extreme direct impact in Rio de Janeiro. And then what happened then after movement? So as I said, in 1964, we had the military coup. And until the 70s, Rio de Janeiro tried to reinvent itself as a cultural appeal, doing a lot of urban territorial renewal. But from the 70s to 80s, nationwide, we are struck with the declination of economy, which is our economies called the dark decade, the 70s and the 80s, and also it is concomitant with the extraordinary growth of favelas, for example. So what happened then to try to regain or maintain the economy of Rio de Janeiro? It starts to use some strategies like being the central of the cultural capital, because the economic capital was already São Paulo by that time with all the industrialization process. So the strong economy was already consolidated in São Paulo city. So Rio de Janeiro tried to find another role. From the 70s and 80s, they start, Rio de Janeiro is the cultural center. And then in the 90s, we found oil reservoirs at the Campos Basin. This is one of the main reasons also why Petrobras can still remain in Rio de Janeiro. But also that didn't help Rio de Janeiro to maintain its economic status. So from the 2000s, federal government started to have a great issues and actions to try to put Rio de Janeiro in the big event scenario. So we had World Cup, we had Pan Olympics, and a lot of sports mega events. So this is a new role that Rio de Janeiro, with the support of federal government, are trying to reach. So what I want to wrap up here is how to read all the challenges. So this is a lot of controversial item, but I wanted to bring, because I think this is a base to urban problems in Rio de Janeiro specifically. So as most of you may know, Brazil has some militia problems. I mean, all Latin America. And Rio de Janeiro is the state of the militias here in Brazil. Militias, by militias, I mean illegal mafia-like paramilitary group that are formed by police officers, some military officers, politicians, criminals that operate as a regular mafia by trading and extorting and having actually political influence. And this militia, it's really a violence network because it's not about only drug gangs, about trafficking, but they really have, they finance infrastructures in the favelas, for example. They are the ones who protect favelas, do all the protection system. They have their own law rule, and they actually have their own judiciary system, for example. Also, they collect taxes for basic services. And I think this is an important point that Rio de Janeiro, for sure, was not planned be like losing the status of capital, because there is no vacuum of power. So when you take out all the whole federal government power, like formally from the city without any planning, you create a state of vacuum power that the consequences we are still facing. So as there is a vacuum of power because the city or the state of Rio de Janeiro was not that powerful about the time, because you can think for 200 years they were the central government, and then from day to another it has had to fortify and learn how to be a local government, let's say. So all the public budgetary system, all the administrative bureaucracy is changed, but they don't have the know-how, let's say. So it became, as the public officers in local level was trying to understand what's happening, there is a vacuum of power. And some experts say that this vacuum of power led place to these militias. So the problem here is not about militias, but something that I want to address about lesson learned. It's about how to fulfill this vacuum of power. I think is a strategy really needed. And also, as Rio de Janeiro had 200 years of experience of budgetary and finance in federal government, they had to switch back how to think about in a local level, which they still are progressing. So we had 200 years of being capital of Brazil, and then only 60 now years being local government. So they are still struggling. And that impacts all the tax collecting system, all the urban policies, and because they don't have any more the money coming from federal government. And also all the administrative culture and bureaucracy was made thinking them as the federal government, not as local government or as regional government, which is slightly different, we all know here. So this is, I think, is a main lesson learned that we are still struggling. And some experts are using like Korea example to defend, for example, that Rio de Janeiro has to be the second capital of Brazil or a second central district. So kind of divide or admit that Rio de Janeiro still have this status, and then all the infrastructure and the budget system will come back in some part and reinvent Rio de Janeiro itself. This is what I had to share. Thank you, Terimasak, and thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Hanem Kim. And also, I would like to give you an appreciate, because right now, as I know, it's almost midnight over there, right? And
Yes,
thank you
it is.
for sharing with us. So I really appreciate that you allocate your time to be with us today. So thank you very much. And that's all of our speakers that share their insight about Seoul, capital city relocation in Seoul to Sejong City, from Professor Park and also from Hazira, talking about the relocation of capital city from Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya, and from Rio to Brasilia, Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia, from Miss Henep Kimso. So interestingly, that for example, in Seoul case and also Kuala Lumpur's case, that the capital still in Seoul and Kuala Lumpur, and just only administrative offices in an institution relocate to the new city, like Kuala Lumpur to Putrajaya, and then also Seoul to Sejong, like that. And then for Seoul, it's still on progress to make the buildings over there. Okay, For other participants, please ask your question through the link that given in the chat columns. It's Urban Talks from Linktree. So you can find the Slido button over there, and then just ask your question and give your question and your name, and also what's your question, and then what your question is supposed to be answered. Like if you want to ask Professor Park, you can ask and mention in your question. Okay, let me see the question. Okay, I think it's two question is specifically direct to Professor Park from Seoul. The first question is regarding to Republic of Korea's experience. Is there any incentive strategies to attract private public facility providers such as medical, education, or other kinds? That's one question. And then the other is I found in terms of government function, some government offices and agencies have relocated to Sejong City. Is it inefficient for the business to handle their matters to? I think is it efficient or inefficient or not for the business to handle their matters to the central government thingy, like they have to use submit the permit or something like that. I think this first two questions for Professor Park. Please, I give it to you.
Okay, thank you for very important, the key questions actually. The first one is about the supporting facilities. Okay, when we think about the setting a strategic anchor, then we need to think about the why people prefer to live in Seoul, or why they don't want to, for instance, relocate to the other areas, move to other areas, because of the accumulated the amenities or the good hospitals, good education. This thing is so. When you want to set an alternative, the anchor, we need to consider this the facilities as well, the good hospitals, of course, and the education facilities. So, for instance, in Sejong, we also planned to have two big hospitals and also good level of the elementary and the middle schools as well, because we understand the importance of the amenity and the basic infrastructure. But if we have the bigger sized city, like a million, the city for the million or the 2 millions, then we can have a even better level of the hospital, the education facilities, or the cultural facilities as well. So in terms of this providing or equipping with the important infrastructure, I think that is quite important. So that's why we need to plan a comprehensive city, okay, not just focusing on this function. So from this regard, if we review the 10 innovative cities, in terms of the economies of scale, this innovative cities is not big enough in each city to have a good hospital or a good education, including the tertiary one, the universities or something. So that's why I have a question whether this is the right way to distribute these functions in multiple cities, or concentrate this one in Sejong City or the other existing cities in order to set an alternative. that is the first my answer for the first question. And the second question is about the probable inefficiency from the point of view of the business. For decades, the South Korean government tried to establish a e-government system, open government, transparent, and the some electronic based the documentation process. So from business side, in terms of the getting permission or for the application or something, then it is not that inefficient. But the thing is, we need to have some face-to-face meetings, for instance. Then the private sectors, if all the ministries and the government bodies which have the authority of the approval or something, then they need to go to Sejong, and they can have a meeting with the public officials there. But if they live in Seoul and if their headquarters are still in Seoul, then they have some inefficiency, I think. But this inefficiency is unavoidable, right, in a way. If you think about the side effects of the overconcentration in the Seoul, then we need to endure kind of this inefficiency. And in order to overcome this inefficiency, then we can try to have some improvement in adoption of more the online meetings, and fundamentally, eventually the government can provide more incentive to the private sectors for the relocation of the headquarters into the cities like Sejong or the other innovation cities. Okay, that's it. Thank you for the very important questions.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your answer. And I think in the chat column also there is a question to Ms. Hanem. Since Brasilia became the new capital of Brazil, various issues have emerged. Among them are the emergence of slums on the outskirts of Brasilia, the loss of social spaces that are rooted in cultural identity of the diverse Brazilian nation and economic and so on. And there's problem due to the notably rush development process of Brasilia, which should have undergone more careful planning. The question is, what measures should Indonesia take? That's the participant of this asked the question about what do you think Indonesia should take to ensure that the new capital relocation becomes a more successful transition. Furthermore, how will government employees affected by the capital relocation be handled? Like, for instance, the national government employee, some of them should be relocated to the new capital city, and will be there resistance from this employee or something based on your experience. I think this already mentioned by Professor Park that so many resistance from the citizen that they don't want to move the new capital city, and I think it can be applied to all of the speakers today. So, Ms. Hanem, please, what's your suggestion for us in here that we are now facing the relocation of our capital city to Nusantara city? Maybe next year, starting from next year, we are going to start the relocation of our central government to Nusantara city. So, what is your suggestion for us?
Thank you for the question. It's quite ambitious.
Tough, right?
question, I think I will not be able to fulfill it. But I think one comment that I wanted to address, and I think it's important to detail it more. It was a rushed movement. I don't know. I mean, this idea was coming since 1789, and it was fulfilled only in 1960. So I cannot really say that this was not planned, because throughout the constitution, they had articles, decrees, and also resolutions about how to expand and prepare the future land, etc., etc. So it was planned in a certain way, but I think also it is rushed and unplanned. Yes. And unplanned in a certain way because probably by the time they were all focused in Brasilia, how to make, and I saw the site of the new in the island of Boro is quite similar. You only have the lanes of the streets as similar of what the satellite photos that we have in 1950, for example, to Brasilia site. So I think we focused a lot in Brasilia and didn't focus in Rio de Janeiro. So that was the unplanned part. So what to do with all the public agents there will still remain there in case of not all institutions goes to the new capital. I think this is the first question. But also, I mean, being the central district, you have all this administrative systems and hierarchies so different from how local government should work. So this is a big shift that was not prepared or planned. But so I think it's important, as this webinar is trying to focus in Jakarta also, not only in the new capital. So I think a successful transition will have both sides, the old and new planet in certain way. And the second question, I would like to just do a comment. It's about, I tried to explain how JK president wanted to distance himself from the elite or political cultural elite by that time. But when I say the president, there is a whole elite squad of public officers behind it. So what happened is that the whole hierarchy of ministry moved all from, in 1 year, in just one day, they moved from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia. So they became in a white elephant mountain, while all the middle and the bottom technical, all the public officers, they remain in Rio de Janeiro without any plan or transitional plan. So they are still there until today. So you have still the head of decision in Brasilia. And when I say President wanted to put himself out, as how this elite that wanted to rule the country moved and distanced itself to rule in his way. And I'm not saying that is a bad or a good thing, because for sure there is a positive externality, because we have a lot of Islam in Brasilia, but because of Brazil, in 60 years, all the central part of Brazil was developed. So we are, for example, challenging China in soy production, for example. And that was only able in economy like Brazil, because we start moving the power decision territory to the central part of the country. So we have also this important regional development in central area. And the Amazon giving the test, we have the COP 2018 now. Amazon is getting more importance because you have a strong power near the forest, for example. So I think we have to think in a strategic and in a national-wide way also. So this is my comments. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Henim, for your answer. And then back to the other question. To all expert speakers, question number one is, what are the advantages and disadvantages experienced by Seoul, Kuala Lumpur, and Rio de Janeiro following the capital relocation. The second one is how does the relocation affect urban issues? Can the urban problems be solved after the relocation? That we heard before that Kuala Lumpur experienced that after the relocation of some or many of administrative function of central government to Putrajaya, then Kuala Lumpur can be focuses in providing better quality of life in Kuala Lumpur for the citizen and so on. So, what is your question? What is your answer? I think. Please, maybe from Ms. Hazira first.
Thank you, Pa Andika, for the questions. I will start on with the advantages and the disadvantages in a very brief way, because you can't go through one by one. Anyway, so the first was because of this relocation, Kuala Lumpur is able to at least focus on, you know, collecting or luring international businesses into Kuala Lumpur. So it's rather than, because we're thinking that there are more office spaces now, we are able to, you know, give more job opportunities within the city. However, because we're too focused on doing that, then the same issue is still coming up. I mean, like, you're giving more job opportunities, which is people keep on coming into the city. However, one of the ideas was to actually have the corridor of between Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya to also become the new township, so that, you know, it can be stretched, the urban sprawl can be stretched in between these two cities. So that is actually happening now. And we're hoping that with the towards, you know, maybe in 10 years time, that the urban issues can be solved. But I think it cannot, personally, because Kuala Lumpur still maintains whatever that it is with a great infrastructure in comparison to any other places. I mean, comparatively with Putrajaya itself, and we are also having like you know, coming up with integrating the whole train system. So I think with all these good infrastructure coming in, we will definitely have like more people coming into the city. And there are also plans for cheaper houses, affordable housing, which is like 50,000 units that is being developed at the moment. And with all these offers, it actually just make people move into Kuala Lumpur. And I think it is important for Kuala Lumpur to continuously be like this, to ensure that, you know, we're able to be the main contributor to the GDP growth of the country.
Okay. How about you, Professor Park? Is there any comment of the advantages or disadvantages experienced by Seoul following the plan of capital relocation, and then what's the effect on urban issues?
Yeah, this question is related to my actually previous question. Yeah, of course, we have many advantages living in the new city like Sejong, the quite newly constructed, the new houses, and the price is also affordable compared to the house prices in Seoul, and the more open space. If you visit Sejong, is quite recently built city, so the smart city concept and the technologies also applied there, and more environment friendly facilities. So these are all the advantages. And the disadvantages, the problematic disadvantages are the opposite to the advantages living in Seoul, of course, right? That is the hospitals, for instance, and the good level of education, and the families there, right? And the networks with the friends in the existing big cities. So that's why if we try to relocate or to try to build a alternative the city against this existing the city, is we need to have the comprehensive city in scale, so that we can attract the better hospital, the good level of the hospital, and also the education facilities and the cultural facilities, including the theaters and good libraries, and even for the good department stores for the shopping. Those are all very important. If you have some size, we can have the more networks in the cities, that city, so we can have more and more the reasons to live in the cities. But for the initial stage of the relocation itself, then we can have some issues there, because still, even though we have jobs in the new city, for instance, like public officials, but still our families and friends are still in, for instance, Jakarta or the Seoul, right? But as the city grows, as we have the facilities in terms of the healthcare and the culture and shopping, then we can have this, we can have less issues. So it's kind of the problems in transition, I think. So in sum, the size matters, and the comprehensiveness of the city that matters, and the time will address these issues, I think. So I think in terms of from this point, the Jakarta's decision, the Indonesia's decision to build in Nusantara as a quite big scale and a quite comprehensive approach, I think that is quite the desirable approach.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. How about you, Ms. Hanem?
Well, I think about advantage and disadvantage. I think you need some period of time to evaluate that. So I think Brasilia we already have 60 years of capital in Brazil. So we already have 2 generations of people born and raised in Brasilia. So I think this make an advantage in a medium and long term, because as I said, with all the negative externalities of slums and etc., but it's still nationwide, we have a strong central area of Brazil economy today, because probably we had this rapid urbanization with all the problems urbanization comes with, this urban sprawl, etc. But you have, as a nation, as a federal government point of view, you have 60 years of central area exploitation and development and occupying the central of the country. So I think this is an advantage that I can say today, 60 years past Brasilia decision. So I think disadvantages and advantages has also vertical hierarchy involved. So nationwide can be seen as an advantage, but in the local government point of view, if I was a Rio de Janeiro public officer, I would say that it was quite a disadvantage kind of thing. But also, this disadvantage came from a huge challenge to reinvent the city itself. And I think Rio de Janeiro is quite unique and different from Seoul or Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta, is because all the infrastructure and all the economic base of Brazil is in São Paulo. So it make Rio de Janeiro even weaker as attractiveness. Because if you need a hospital, if you need a network, if you need education, you come São Paulo. You don't go Rio. Of course, they have good schools and everything, but it's still São Paulo is the main attractive city. So Rio de Janeiro has another level of challenge because it has to reinvent itself without the economy support as Jakarta has, or Seoul has, or Kuala Lumpur has. So I think it's quite disadvantaged for Rio de Janeiro point of view, because it doesn't have any. That's why they shift their role to cultural. And I mean, the Carnival Brazil is sold out part of the world, but this is touristic. Of course, there is an important part of GDP or etc., but still you cannot like compete with the level of powers of Brasilia or economic power of São Paulo. So I think this unique situation of Rio de Janeiro made the change disadvantaged for Rio de Janeiro. I think it's quite different from Jakarta city, for example, which is still have its strong economy and all the political and cultural centers is still in Jakarta and will be still in Jakarta.
Yeah, it's a little bit different from Brazil experience, right? So because even though Rio wants a capital city, but the most stronger city is Sao Paulo, right? So yeah, that's a little bit different from Jakarta. Jakarta is more like Kuala Lumpur or Seoul, which we have the center of everything of our nation located in here. So that's more like Seoul and Kuala Lumpur. Okay, so the next question is came from Bulita. I would like to say thanks for the speakers and ask about there was economic issues when you relocate capital, how all of the country overcome it and how long. And it's the same question with Pak Mustaqim. How does capital relocation affect economy of former capitals and new capitals and the region on both sides? I think it's applied to all of the speakers today. Maybe from Professor Park.
I mean, the point of the question is the impact of, especially the economic impact on the former capital, right?
Yes, the former capital.
By this decision of the relocation, right?
Yes.
Okay. In the early 2000s, we had a series of the research on the relocation of the capital to Sejong, right? Some of the research topics were about the new city, what will be the master plan, what is the direction of the development of the new capital. But the other part was how to address some of the issues from the changes in the existing city, like Seoul, right? So when we relocate the certain ministry to the other area, then how can we use this existing, the former, the office building of that specific ministry or the public institute. So we had a series of the studies and research on that one. That is the reason is we think about the probable, the negative impact, especially in terms of the economy. We can have a negative impact from this decision. But I think the existing city can take this as an opportunity. Why? Because again, the fundamental reason behind this decision of the relocation is the unsustainability of the current level. Too many people, right? Too many functions in the limited area. And many people are suffering from the long commute and the high house prices, high land prices, high office prices. So, some say if you relocate something, then we need to have more incentive to attract like more business or something. But if we compensate, right, like that way, then it cannot address the fundamental problem of the overconcentration. So we need to think about, this is not just a trade-off, right? we need to think about the fundamental question of the over concentration, and kind of we need to set some strategy, kind of the strategy how to smoothly to reduce the population, how to smoothly reduce the functions and something. So my presentation of my title was the incomplete mission, right? So why I said that? Still, Seoul is experiencing over concentration and the rocketing house prices still, even though we had this this effort of the relocating of the public institutes. Why? We still have the problems, and so we have after that decision, quite recently in the last 10 years, the current government, latter government, they kind of did a deregulation on this existing capital region, and they decided to put more infrastructure, not the other areas. So that those combination of these the decisions made Seoul more attractive than others. Then the result, more people living in this boundary of the Seoul commuting area, and the increased house prices, which makes everyone suffer from it. Not, of course, there are some beneficiaries of this concentration, who the property owners who have some, the ownership in the central areas. The price of their properties increase. So we need to think about the strategy and to think about the strategy how to slim, right, the existing city in some smart way. Okay, that is my comment.
Thank you very much. It's a little bit same your case in Seoul, also in Jakarta. Jakarta, the house pricing in here is skyrocketing, and for example, many of young public officer of Jakarta city government live not in the city, but in the suburban areas. That's happen also in Jakarta. Back to Kuala Lumpur, Ms. Hazira, how about the Kuala Lumpur? What is the challenges in economical issues that Kuala Lumpur facing as when the relocation issues of administrative government issues relocate to Putrajaya? What do you think?
So, thank you, Pak Andika. Basically, the relocation of the administrative capital from KL to Putrajaya, it did bring about some economic impacts on Kuala Lumpur, of course. Though I think that these effects were not permanent and also were not uniformly negative. So I would say that the resilience of Kuala Lumpur to strive after 20 years was mainly because, of course, we cannot deny the fact that the real estate and property sector is very much affected by the shift, because of the demand, and the property values in certain areas actually decreased, and there is a need for these government related facilities to actually be improved, or because they were actually like renting out from someone else, and there are some things that were very much initially was a problem. But fortunately for Kuala Lumpur, that some businesses were able to be diversified, because there were very much diversity in economy within Kuala Lumpur and what Kuala Lumpur has offered, especially the investment, the incentives for foreign investment in comparison to any other cities within Malaysia. So I think rather than saying that there is economic impact impacted Kuala Lumpur negatively. It very much impacted Kuala Lumpur, which I believe would definitely impact Jakarta at the same time, because this is like a stigmatization of people. You know, when you talk about Indonesia, you talk about Jakarta. When you talk about Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, you talk about Kuala Lumpur. So it's very much the same. It's, you know, when you talk about South Korea, then you talk about Seoul. So it's very much the same, and I don't think that this is going to, you know, directly impact very much for a longer time. I mean, it is at the initial level, but towards the time, it will help very much to the city's economic growth.
Thank you, Ms. Azira. How about you, Hanem? The economical issues that Rio facing for the relocation to the capital to Brasilia.
I think one important thing that I would like to highlight about economical issues in Rio de Janeiro is that in the 1990s, they discovered Bacia de Campos, which is the oil exploitation field in offshore and onshore. So I think Rio de Janeiro was having a really big effort since 1960 to find it's reinventing something, and then try a lot of strategies. And then in 1990, we discovered the possibility of oil exploitation. And that's what sustained all the profits and taxes that comes from oil exploration. Huge parts still remain in state and city of Rio de Janeiro. So I think for Rio de Janeiro, I mean, Bacia de Campos was kind of a salvation, or a backdoor salvation that was not expected. So I think Rio de Janeiro has this luck to find it. But also, I read an article preparing this, if Brasilia was moved today, probably it will not be able, first because of the democratic process and all the opposition as Seoul had, like Jakarta probably faced. But I think it gives also the opportunity, I think, economic growth, as I think Hasira said, about having a lot of international finance for global city, sustainable city, as Jakarta are trying to use this strategy to reinvent itself. I think we have a lot of studies related in a digital and smart city areas fields that probably didn't exist back then when Rio de Janeiro was like thinking of not being any more capital. So I think this is an advantage because we have some options and we can set strategies. And also I think another opportunity that sometimes we don't give a lot of shade, it's about the middle and technical public officers capacity building. So, which is us mainly, right? Because you have the high hierarchy going to the new capital, but then you have still remained people of public officers that make actually the wheel go on. And then we have the opportunity to draw new fluxes or processes in public administration to better make the wheel goes on and on. So I think it's an opportunity, so that, as you and Anika said, the new officer that is coming in, that is still working in suburbs, we already have another environment. We have hybrid work, we have another settlement on how public administration can face new challenges or innovation process. I think this is another opportunity that we can address for this momentum that Jakarta is facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanem. I believe it's already past midnight over there. Another question is from our participant is towards a research and digital-based global city. what can Jakarta learn from your cities regarding connect and integrate research and also the business, maybe from Azira, Kuala Lumpur.
As for this, thank you for the question. For this, I believe that what what Kuala Lumpur City Hall is doing is very much like they have this Kuala Lumpur Regional Training Center where they have a research team which directly connect, or I would say like very much close to each and every research academy or research institution. And because sometimes you can't be doing a lot of things together at the same time, and you have like less capacity, less people, less human capital to actually do it. So it's better to have a connection or an alliances between the different research agencies and providing data across sectors for a research and development. I think it's easy to actually do that in comparison to sharing, making up one whole just one center just for research. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How about Seoul, Professor? I was living there. We were living there previously. We were experience the vibrant and ambience of research and development in Seoul, in Republic of Korea. What do you think? What's Jakarta should learn from Seoul in order to integrate and collaborate the research and the business to maintain the position as epicentrum of economic in Indonesia?
Okay, so as I said before, this is a quite good opportunity for Jakarta. It can transform into more like a compact city in a way, right? Overcoming the existing problems of the overcrowdedness, and the research and development and the digitalization can be the center of that transition, I think. So from the experience of the many cities or the villages in the many parts of the world, we are learning the kind of the technologies for the future cities or the smart cities, or in terms of the renewable energy and the passive technology, buildings with the passive technologies, and this can this can enhance the sustainability and the affordability issues in Jakarta. So my experience in Jakarta and also in Seoul, the existing cities, we have history, we have the old buildings, old houses, and if we take some functions out of the city, then we have, in other words, we have more room for the redevelopment. Okay, then we can make use of this space in the room for the adopting the new technologies. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And how about you, NM? In terms of research and development, and what Jakarta can learn from Rio case after the relocation of capital city?
Thank you for the question. I think it's quite controversial also, but I think the strategy taken by federal government after the 90s to bring, for example, the Earth Summit in 1992, the World Cup, and they developed more than any, I think, city in Brazil, PPP, public-private partnership. So I think this is something that is, as I said, quite controversial. I mean, everything has positive and negative issues, but I think it made all this flow of income of international money, projects, and events made Rio de Janeiro reinvent how we do PPP in Brazil, for example. I think, and they are now, we have some experts on PPP from Rio de Janeiro. They are giving capacity building in other cities. I think this is a great opportunity, just continuing the previous session of questions, but also how you can use this opportunity internally. As Brazil is so big, you can when you become a reference on something, I think this is quite fruitful too. I think this is a case in Rio de Janeiro that we can say that are having good consequences.
Okay, thank you very much for all of the speakers today. I think there are a lot of questions that submitted to Slido apps but not all of the question could be answered. It's many questions, but if you don't mind, the speakers, we can send you the question, and then maybe you can answer it to us and give it back the answer to us. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's our webinar today, and then for the speakers, I would like to send my gratitude that all of you can come and then share your insight to all of us, especially to Jakarta City Government Officer, because we are here more than 400 people gathering in here in this Zoom, and also in the YouTube. We are really grateful to have you, three of you here, Professor Park, Ms. Hazira, and also Ms. Hanem. Thank you very much, especially for you, Ms. Hanem, because it's past midnight over there. I really appreciate that you can share with us your insightful experience of Brazil, especially the relocation of the capital cities from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia. And before we say goodbye, I would like to take a moment to send the very warm thank you to all of the participants from many friends in Jakarta, and also the Jakarta official city government officer, and for your participation and interest in this topic, the post-relocation of Indonesia capital and Jakarta toward research and digital-based global city. And we believe that the information presented in the here in this webinar will be beneficial to all of you who attend this webinar, and I hope that the webinar will inspire you to take action toward our goals as a former capital city of Indonesia. As we come to end of this webinar, we would like to invite you to invite the MC, I think, MC to give the closing for the this webinar. And thank you again for joining with us today. We appreciate your time and also hope to see you again, especially in the second series of Urban Talks webinar, maybe in the beginning of year 2024. Thank you very much, and I will give back to our beautiful MC today, Miss Anissa.
Thank you, Pak Andika Aji, for steering us through these fruitful discussions. We appreciate the valuable insights shared by our esteemed speakers, including Professor Jun Park, Ms. Hazira Ghazali, and Ms. Hene Kimso from Brazil, who joined us despite the time difference. Special thanks to the Regional Development Planning Agency, or Bapeda, for organizing this webinar, with support from Jakarta Communication Informatics and Statistic Agency, or Diskominfotik. May the lesson learned today inspired positive actions for Jakarta's journey towards becoming a research and digital-based global city. And don't forget to receive your e-certificate, especially for civil servants of DKI Jakarta Province. Please ensure you fill out the attendance list link to earn credits. Please use the link provided in link3/Urban Talks. The attendance link is separate from the registration link. Also, participant can access the speaker's materials through the same link provided for the webinar. Thank you once again for being a part of today's webinar. Until we meet again, take care and see you in another Urban Talk series. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om. Namo Buddhaya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.
Thank you.